Hey guys, so you'll remember when I mentioned that I was having a special guest for this special segment for this episode talking about Forever on Netflix. And here's my special guest. This is Erian.
Hello.
And I'm so excited to have Erian. And if you cannot tell by the slight resemblance, or if you don't already know us, this is my daughter. And I'm so excited to have Erian as a guest today because we did not watch the show together. But I was like, we got to talk about this. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts on the show? And so when I decided that I would do this podcast episode around this topic of forever, I was like, you want to be on my podcast? And I said, yeah. She accepted. So I'm so excited to have you on here for this discussion that I've become so passionate about. So how are you today? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, ready to discuss, and yeah, I'm excited. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. There's another reason why I'm feeling great. A big event happened yesterday, and Erian graduated from high school. And so I was like, this conversation is right on time because the characters in the show were like gearing up for all the things that lead up to graduation. And so I think this is like the perfect event. And just yesterday was amazing. Congratulations to you again.
Thank you.
On graduating. So when it comes to Forever, how did you watch the show? Did you binge it, or did you like watch one episode here, one episode there?
I think, starting off, I think I just watched like one episode, and then for the rest, I binged it because I was doing my hair. So
Okay.
I just had time, and I just watched the whole
Right,
thing.
because you was putting the braids in.
Yeah.
I feel like binging, like if you binge, that makes the experience or how you might take the show in a little bit different than like sparsing out episodes here and there.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like binging it kind of makes it feel a little bit more like a fluent like sequence of events. And it kind of feels a little bit more like you're actually with them through this journey, like in real time.
Yeah, I agree. That was my experience. So when I watched it, I was working from home and I watched the first episode while I was sitting here. I was doing my work, y'all. I was really working. But I watched the first episode and I was like, I'm back to the show. It's really good. And then I binged it as well. And it really stayed with me. And I've since watched it so many times, obviously. But okay, so you kind of mostly binged it during a braiding session.
Yes,
so
yes.
Okay. So like we talked about, you're in the same age group. You just got finished going through all the things, just finished up 12th grade. Junior year probably feels like it was just like a week ago.
Yeah.
And that's where the show opens up, where they're like midway, I think, through junior year. Just kind of like keeping it into perspective. Do you like see parts of yourself or parts of your experience that you might have just went through in any aspects of the show?
Absolutely. I feel like, just like all the things, just having conflicts in your relationships with your friends, with maybe, a person that it's like in a romantic way. That's a big thing. Just also like the stress of school and how school drama can really affect your education, and then just to see like the different perspectives of family life. I think I related to that part a lot because just with the school I go to, or I just graduated from, I could really relate to kind of being Keisha but knowing a lot of Justins. Not exactly being Keisha, but just kind of using that as a metaphor. But yeah, and just kind of like being around a lot of people who have like a family like Justin's family, and that like a lot of that just kind of like hit close to home for me. Even with like the whole prom debacle, like that was relatable as well.
How so?
Well, prom is just a really stressful thing, honestly. And I think there's so many dynamics. I can sometimes, like for my personal experience, I loved my proms that I went on. I had a great time like going shopping and things like that. But there was also just like conflicts around dates and times and who I'm going with. And that was just the whole thing. Just kind of like seeing the prom drama from Keisha's point of view. it was understandable just because of I get it, and I know how prom can be just like this huge like stressful event that takes all this preparation just for like one night.
So seeing how she was like conflicted between still telling Christian that she would go to prom with him because she didn't want her mom to like suspect something. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't exactly my situation, but just knowing like how much a lot of times prom can mean to like family members as well, that was relatable.
Okay.
That I could kind of see where she was coming from with just like not wanting to disappoint her mom. Though, you know, during that part, I kind of just wanted to shake Keisha and be like, Keisha, like, it's okay. You can just tell your mom that you don't want to go. Right. Like, it's actually okay. Even after she bought the dress, I still felt like she could have just told her mom and they could have sold the dress.
Right.
It didn't have to be that.
Or she could have wore it with somebody else.
Right.
Maybe.
But I just feel like, you know, it didn't have to be everything that it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess you need the conflict.
Right.
Have some kind of upsets to make the drama, you know, continue to move forward.
For sure.
Yeah. So, which I know you talked about, like, you could see aspects of Keisha, you could identify with aspects of Justin. Was it a particular character, whether it was the two of them or someone else in the show, that you feel like you resonated with or could identify with the most, and why?
Honestly, I don't think me and Keisha, like, although I could see her point of view with some things, I don't really see myself in her. I think maybe the person I might see myself in the most would be Keisha's best friend.
Okay.
Just because, like, throughout high school, one big lesson that I learned is just like how to be a good friend. And I think that Keisha's best friend was a really great friend to her and was very supportive. Even during Keisha's times of just maybe making decisions that weren't the best.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also something that, you know, happens a lot in high school. We're all, you know, learning and trying to figure things out and making mistakes. So I think just being that friend that you can clearly see, you know, your friend might be, you know, dealing with something or maybe they're not making the best decisions, but still being supportive and just being sensitive to their feelings. I can identify with that.
Yeah, I love the roles that both of the friends played in the story. Because I felt like the writers, they really did a good job with making it realistic, because even Justin's friend, like, he tells Keisha in the beginning that Darius is like his only real friend. And even though like Darius gave him a hard time in the beginning, because you got to think about it, like the way that sometimes girls and women can be shamed for things around like sexual stuff and things that, you know, like the woman or the girl might do or might be known for at this point, that comes with a stigma. And I think in the beginning, Darius was like, oh, you can't be a simp, like all this stuff. But then after he saw that Justin was like, you know, really feeling her and like really in love with this girl, he kind of stopped doing this, like saying that stuff. And he was just kind of like supporting him through it. Like, yeah, you can use my phone to, you know, DM her because she's blocked you at this moment, or like, I'm going to come with you to her college signing party, like all these different things. And then they, you know, kind of all became friendly together. But I really like that, because I feel like sometimes, especially like with males, they will continue to go hard to like make you feel bad for being like what's known as being a simp or something like that. So I really did appreciate just like the role that both of the friends played. But that's really interesting that you could see yourself the most in that character. But I can see that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like just the role that the friends played was also just very realistic. Because I can oftentimes see in like female friendships, just from my experience, you know, it is hard to come by a friend like the friend Keisha had. Chloe, I think was her name.
Yeah.
It is hard to come by a friend like Chloe, but it's more common, I think, than it is for like a boy to have that same kind of a friend. The way that Chloe was kind of supportive from the very beginning and listened to Keisha's feelings at all times, and was just very supportive and reliable. And yeah, and she even went all the way up to Oak Bluffs,
Right.
to, you know, up there with her family to help her get Justin back. That's something that not a lot of people would do.
Absolutely.
I think Justin's friend was kind of also a very realistic depiction of what boys' friendships are like a lot. I mean, I feel like, you know, over time, he definitely did come around to, like, you know, being more open to Keisha. But I think also Justin needed a little bit more emotional support than what he got. And I think that that's common with a lot of boys this age, in every age, honestly. And I think that like that was kind of a subliminal thing that maybe not many people would have picked up on, or maybe like not really paid that much attention to. But I think also that kind of was just like, you know, pointing out the ways in which, like, you know, Justin, he went through a lot. Like, he was in like a depression for like all these months. And of course, and you know, his friend probably did reach out to him and stuff, but it seems like, you know, maybe he could have had a little bit more of an emotional support from somebody outside of like his mom.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that that was also why Justin and Keisha kind of leaned on each other, and might even be seen as like a codependency kind of thing, because, you know, sometimes like boy friendships can't really give you that or don't really give you that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about that, but that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, like, and, you know, this is something that I don't know how you'll, you know, feel about giving as much detail, but is there a particular moment in the show that you feel hit the most close to home for you, like being in this season in your life?
I would say the last episode where Justin and Keisha, you know, they go get food together and they're standing outside and they say, maybe it wasn't meant to be forever, but we're meant to be the people that we remember forever. And I think that just like at this point in my life, I'm in a time of transition, and I don't know who's still going to be in my life 10, 15, 20, even 1 year from now.
Yeah.
But the people that I have, you know, been able to build relationships with in recent times, I will remember them forever, and I will always hold this time in my life very close to my heart. And just the people that I have been able to meet and, you know, grow close to. I think that that moment kind of captured, or just honestly the show as a whole kind of really captured like the reality of, you know, teenage relationships at that time in your life. And I feel like, you know, most people who, you know, are in a relationship in college, I mean in high school, especially like senior year, that is kind of like how it ends up usually. Of just because who you are at this point, like, this is a time of like complete transition. Many people are, you know, preparing to move out of their parents' houses and like start to build their own and really learn about themselves. And especially like, you know, depending on what you're studying or what you're going to do in school, you need to focus. And so I think that, you know, just being in a relationship at this time, or like that type of like time period, that kind of was like a perfect depiction of like, you know.
Yeah. I think, you know, I just love what you said, because the people that are in your life now, you're going to remember them like forever, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be in your life forever. And so I think that's really insightful, because it is such a pivotal moment where like things do feel really magnified. And just for that point about change, so what Keisha did in terms of the mistake that she made with Christian and making the video, that was in sophomore year, I believe. And so when you think about who you were in sophomore year and then to senior year, and even that is such a big change.
It is a big difference. It actually is a very big difference of who I was 2 years ago to now.
So
very big difference.
Yeah, I think about that, just, you know, to your point of like, you're figuring out who you are, probably going to be a totally different person even a year from now. And that's so true. And that's just like an honest thing to be able to, you know, see someone that you love and be able to part ways and say, you know, it's just the timing isn't right, or our paths might be different. But the forever could mean, you know, just that I remember you forever. So I love that. Let's see. Do you feel like there is anything that the show got really right or was really spot on, or maybe they missed the mark on in terms of like capturing what it's really like at this age. So maybe with the way that people in your age group communicate, or just anything that was depicted in the show. Do you feel like there's like things that they really got right, or just like didn't get right?
I think a lot of it was really right. Again, with just like the prom and just like actually most of it. I would say maybe the part about the blocking back and forth. I think maybe that was a little bit exaggerated.
You think so?
Maybe. I think for some people, maybe that's how they just are. But I think like, okay, maybe somebody will block somebody once, but like to keep blocking over and over, like I feel like that's kind of just like maybe a little bit exaggerated. Not to say that it couldn't happen. I don't really know anybody who's like, I know people who block people, but I don't know anybody that's like, okay, I'm gonna block you right now, then I'm gonna unblock you tomorrow, then I'm gonna block, like,
Okay.
maybe that was a little bit much.
You know what? So, okay, we talk a lot. I do appreciate that the fact that my daughter shares a lot of things with me. And one of the things that I've learned from just hearing you talk is about like what's considered ghosting. Now, when she blocks him, like after he gets put on punishment that night because he like, lies to the school and says that he can get early dismissal to go.
Right.
So yeah, she blocked him that fast because she's like, you ghosted me.
Yeah, again, exaggeration.
Okay.
I feel like, maybe if I texted somebody and they took all these hours to text me back, I might feel like, okay, like now I don't talk to you anymore. But if they say, yeah, I got my phone taken,
right.
Okay. You know what I mean? Then that's like you didn't get ghosted. But I would never just block somebody because they didn't respond to me in a certain amount of time. I would actually wait to see the message when they finally respond.
That makes sense.
So I think like maybe I think that part was exaggerated to kind of make a point, to kind of just set the show up to just show like their problems with communication from the beginning and how they, have a rocky start. Although I do think that their communication gets much better throughout the show. I think that, maybe that was just exaggerated at the start to show their growth over time.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can really see how they change over time.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to like themes, I feel like there were some big themes in the show. For me, some of the themes were around, dreams and being able to like set a dream and realize your dream, whether it was for the characters themselves, some of it was the parents. That was a theme. There was a theme around like sexuality. There is a theme, I feel like, within the differences within Black culture and education. I feel like there were a lot of different things to just take in and process, like what is it that the writers or the show is, portraying with this. I guess I would ask, what themes did you identify within the show that you feel like felt most relevant to you?
I would say maybe a big one would be growth. Also noticed the theme of dreams. That was a big one that stood out to me as well. And yeah, I think like as far as growth, we kind of see that within every character, but we also see it within Keisha and Justin's relationship as a whole. And just kind of how they progress over time, but also growth is kind of what breaks them at the same time, because in order for them to really grow in the ways that they need to, they can't really be together. So I thought that was interesting. I also, like I said, the theme of dreams really stood out to me a lot as well. Just with it seemed like at the beginning both of their dream was to kind of be like loved in a genuine way. Keisha, of course, always had her dream of going to Howard. And then Justin, he didn't really know what he wanted to do. He had his dream of basketball. Yeah, so I mean, I guess he did know in that way. Then you also see the parents. Keisha's mom had the dream of, Keisha not having no kids.
That was big.
Yeah, and, going to school and doing what she needs to do. Justin's mom, her dream is for Justin to be successful, go to Northwestern. You know what I mean? Everybody kind of has their own dream that they're putting onto the main characters, I feel, in a way. But yeah, I really did appreciate that because I feel like it also kind of shows, like, I just in my personal experience with talking to people my age, it's interesting to see the way that different people dream, kind of, and just like different people's level of ambition and just like belief in themselves to like do big things. And I appreciated that even though Keisha and Justin both came from like two different worlds, kind of, they both had really big dreams of things that they wanted to do. Of course, Justin's dreams were a little bit more risky, with like, you know, wanting to do music and things like that. And then that didn't really align with his mom's dreams for him. But yeah, I think that just the idea of growth and dreams kind of at the same time played off of each other in the show. So
yeah, that's really true. And I like how they also had an example of a dream, a parent and child dream that didn't align and didn't work out necessarily for the best, when you see Keisha's dad and her grandfather, and how the grandfather, you know, he had this setback because he was in baseball, but because of racism, he never got called up to the majors. He was just, I forget, I think it might have been like in a Negro league or a minor league or something, but he never, you know, got to realize his dream. And then when it was his son's turn and his son actually got recruited, he wanted him to stay in college because he felt like that was a safer bet. And so then it didn't work out for him because he stayed in college and did what sometimes parents tell us we're supposed to do. And then the coach that recruited him for the major league, he left. And so now he's still kind of wondering about and not really present all the time for Keisha. So I like how they did, you know, try to show an example of what can happen sometimes when the child really tries to satisfy their parents' dream instead of their own dream. And I kind of saw that as a way that the writers wanted to mirror that that aspect of it. Yeah. I think one of the things that I just enjoyed about this moment is that this show has sparked so much conversation, like online, on social media, and it's been I guess you could say like a big cultural conversation, and talking about cultural impact that the show has had. And even from a generational aspect, like these are main characters that are teenagers, but grown-ups like me and, you know, even older have been like in a chokehold watching this show and talking about this show. So do you feel like in terms of like cultural commentary or just generational commentary, there's something specific that the show like really wanted to get out? Or is there something that stuck with you thinking about you yourself being a teenager, but also being a Black person going through this, also, you know, came from a school that's very similar as like maybe a Camden Hall or maybe a Brookwood or whatever. So, and even for kids that aren't coming out of those types of institutions, just from the cultural aspect of, you know, teenager, graduating, Black, woman, whatever, however you're identifying, what are some of those cultural commentaries that you feel like the show made and that kind of stayed with you?
Well, one thing I would say is really like the way that this was kind of like a Black love story that wasn't centered around like trauma. It was like you don't really see that too much. So that was kind of like a powerful, I think like a powerful message where it was more so just like two regular kids that's going through like normal stuff of this age and navigating that together, rather than like some super traumatic stuff happens to one of them and they're like, you know. So I thought that was really, really cool. I also feel like, you know, just with the idea of Justin wanting to go into entertainment rather than like being in school, I feel like that was a little bit of a cultural commentary, just because, you know, sometimes you do see that within like or just, you know, with making beats, that's more commonly something that, you know, would be in the Black community. So I thought that was interesting that they had Justin do that while coming from a family that has a good amount of money, and they, you know, to have it set for them. You know what I mean? And so in one way, that kind of to me is like, well, when you come from a family where y'all have good money, the hope and the idea is that, okay, well, this will make it easier for your kids to like chase their dreams.
Right.
Because they don't have to like struggle. But then also it's like, well, you want to make sure that you're doing something to keep that generational wealth flowing.
Yeah.
And not just ending it with you because you chose to do something that's not making you no money.
Yeah. You know what? I thought about that too, because for me, I'm like, well, Justin's parents, and Keisha kind of said this to him. She's like, I'm being practical, like with my path, because that's kind of where I am. Like, you know, it seems like she's somewhat being raised by a single mother. Like, even though her dad is there and maybe he supports in some ways, but they don't have it at nowhere close to the level that Justin's family does. And most people would think, and I know you're around a lot of these families that are, you know, more affluent. And so not that they're not pushing their kids to do great things, but there's a little bit more room to dream and to do things that, you know, could be a little bit more risky.
Right.
And so I think, and I was like, well, why is Justin's mom so like what would they have lost by allowing him to go down this path of music, even though the path of music was kind of just like newly emerged? Yeah, like he found these old beats on the computer, and then now it's like, but sometimes that's what it is. You hear this a lot where people say, if you really want to find your passion, go back to like your childhood. And so it's not, you know, really like a wildly ridiculous thing, but for the mother, for Justin's mom, who's coming out, you know, she came out of Northwestern and then Wharton, and, you know, she really, I know, would have had to have worked her ass off to like get to where she got. It's just kind of like interesting that they still were like not really giving him this space to dream the way that people might assume that she would have. And I think that came from a place of fear. Like they talked about, you know, she wants to make sure as a Black man that he like is undeniable, because you always have, you know, we always hear these conversations that we have within our community. Like you have to be undeniable to, you know, get a lot of the things that other, you know, our counterparts would be able to get with no credentials at all in a lot of cases. And unfortunately, you've even seen that a lot. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, you know, if I was Justin's mom, I think I would definitely be conflicted, especially because like, okay, she's coming out of like a, you know, prestigious institution where she, of course, you know, worked really hard. And just me as somebody who really values learning and values school, like even just for like learning's sake, like outside of a career or like being able to profit off of something, but just learning something just because, you know, that's something that's very important to me. And I think that if I was Justin's mom, I think I would probably be like, what are you talking about as well? Because where did this even just come? Like, you just started doing this when, like, first, okay, we're working all these years for you to play basketball, and this was your dream. Now, all of a sudden, you want to do music, and you think that I'm supposed to just, as your mom, say, okay, well, you just discovered this, you got into this great school where this could open up so many opportunities for you, but I'm just going to say, just go ahead and do this music thing, which could wear off in a couple of months, and you might not even like that anymore either.
That's a good point.
Because, you know, it can be like that at this age. The amount of stuff I've picked up and been like, oh, I want to do this. And then I get bored of it 2 weeks later. And I move on to the next thing. Like, that's a part of being young, and that's a part of, or not even just being young, just being a person. People go through different stages of wanting to do stuff. So I feel like as Justin's mom, I wouldn't. What are you talking about? You want to just do music? Not really, no. But what I did like, I like the way that the show kind of, you know, didn't make it seem like he was just putting all his eggs in this one basket, because he was taking a gap year.
Right.
And he would still have a spot at Northwestern if it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a good compromise, because it's like, okay, we're going to give you this year, see what you're going to do.
Yes.
If it don't work out, you're going to school.
Yeah. And a lot of kids that are more affluent
take a gap
year. But we don't usually take no gap year. It's like, you got to get to what you're getting ready to get to now. Gap for what? Like, what's happening within the gap?
Right.
So, that's a really interesting point. So before we close it up, I just want to ask you if you could talked to the writer or creator of the show, and the creator of the show, Mara Brackekill, who I love. And I just love her work ever since Moesha, Girlfriends, everything, Being Mary Jane, Love Is, and Now Forever. What would you want the writers and the creator to know about how the show made you feel as someone who is like, I guess could be seen as the target audience?
Honestly, the show actually made me feel very seen. Just because it was like pretty spot on with just like capturing the experience of being this age and trying to navigate, a social life, school, your family, you're like keeping up with your grades, sports, figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like that's a lot. So I think that, just with having each of those steps kind of be captured in the show, and then again with the last episode, just showing how it's okay if it's not the right time. It's okay to let yourself grow on your own, especially while you're so young. But it's also okay to spend that time with somebody while you still can and while y'all are still here, and just making the best of the time that you have while you have it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that. And just again with the prom thing, like that really just that hit so close to home, because like, yeah, that was just great. I loved the prom conflict because that's so real.
Yes.
And just like, oh, who is this person's family? Like the family's meshing. Like it's kind of just like a little wedding, kind of, where you don't wear white. And I feel like just with that, like it's a lot. It's a lot, and I was really like pleased to see how they capture how much it is.
Yeah, I would say between 3 proms. So she went on 3 proms in her high school journey. 1 junior prom and senior prom. She went on her prom, and then another dates prom. And not to, spread too much tea, but there was a conflict.
There was yes.
You had to turn down another prom date
because there was conflict around if I was going to go. Then the proms ended up being on the same day, so I had to choose one. So that was just a whole conflict, and that took over my mind for like 2 weeks.
And one asked you almost a year in advance.
Yeah.
It was a lot, y'all. The proms. I'm glad it's over.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I'm glad it's over. And just to your point that you mentioned about feeling seen, I echo that as a parent. I felt seen in the parents on the show, like seeing their characters. And I'll say the scene that did it the most for me, I'll say this, the scene that I think really stuck with me, and we talked a little bit about this on our countdown for the top 10 moments, but again, the Martha's Vineyard scene.
Yes.
That discussion around, the Ivies or the top PWIs versus the HBCUs. Junior year being the year that you want to make sure that your kid is like really setting themselves up in the best position. So sometimes as a parent, and you might have felt like this, I know I was like, on you, did you do this? Did you do that? So I really, saw myself, and I felt seen in Justin's mom, but also the uncle felt like he was trying his best to say, like, listen, y'all got on rose-colored glasses. Like, I'm looking from the outside looking in. You're not getting drafted. You're not going to the NBA. You're not even going to be able to play D1. Like, your mom put that little video on Facebook of you making the 3-point shot. Like, all of that is all well and fine, but he was like trying to put some real, reasoning into the situation. And so just being a parent, when you dream and you have such big visions for your kids, I really felt seen within that. And sometimes it, maybe could come across a little bit better than maybe Dawn did in some of her, moments in the show. but I definitely, you know, felt seen just as a Black parent and as a Black parent that is like really busting their ass and like, okay, things are not fair out in this world. So what can I do to set my child up for the best possible chance? And so that you put them in these different schools and you do these different things. And I just really felt that a lot. And so, yeah, I definitely just can identify with that aspect of feeling seen. And I want to thank you for coming on to my new podcast.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
My baby. I am so excited for you and your journey. I'm excited to see what's next for you. I know we're thinking about season 2 for Justin and Keisha. What's going to happen with them? I'm thinking about like what's going to be your season 2? Yes, at college. So I'm just looking ahead to all the things. So yes. Thank you again.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. And thank you all for watching and being a part of this family affair for this podcast. Thank you guys and tune in for the next one. Bye-bye.